I'm going to start out with Mr. Dent. The victim involved in this tragedy is a 58-year-old black man who was driving his Cadillac in Inkster, a suburb of Detroit. On the evening of January 28, 2015, where his life changed forever. He was stopped by the defendant, a then Inkster police officer, and his partner, Officer Zelenowski. Mr. Dent was stopped for a minor traffic offense and ordered out of his vehicle. With his hands extended out of his driver's window, he was grabbed out, thrown to the ground, and struck 16 times in the head by the defendant. In his attempt to arrest him, he was thrown onto a window shield of a patrol car, bleeding profusely from a head injury. The responding police officers arrived as the defendant is wrestling the defendant to the ground. Mr. Dent was struck, kicked, and tased while on the ground by what appeared to be a group of angry, anxious police officers that celebrated after the defendant was beaten and cuffed. The video in the car shows the police officers fist bumping as a celebratory act of bravery by the defendant and his cohorts. But the one image that struck out to the court was looking at Mr. Dent in his cell, shaking his head. In disbelief of what had occurred to him. If his conduct was indicative of what he was thinking, I would have thought this. What crime did I commit? Being a black man in a Cadillac, stopped for a minor traffic offense by a group of racist police officers looking to do a nigger. As police officer John Zelenowski, auxiliary police officer, testified in court too, in his response to a text, was quoted as saying, "At least give me the satisfaction of knowing that you're out there beating up niggas right now. LOL. How humiliating and degrading that must have been." He was left in a cell for a number of hours before getting medical treatment. But after hearing the defendant and his fellow officers joke about his injuries as they were wiping blood off their uniforms with disinfectant. 2015. Please be quiet in my courtroom. How does this happen? I'm going to tell you how it happened. Some years ago, 19 to be, well, 25 to be exact, I remember coming into this building with such enthusiasm, so excited. And I remember a lawyer telling me that nobody leaves out of this building like they came in. I didn't understand what that meant. 20 years later, I do. Everybody has a grand idea about changing the world. And you seem like you felt like you're fighting a losing battle. And little by little, it grows. It's a cancer. It starts to eat away at you. You become cynical. You start to look at pictures of homicides, not for the goriness, but as evidentiary value to see was the shooter left-handed or right-handed. It eats away at you. You go to social events, you tell people what you do for a living, and after they say, "What kind of cases do you hear?" And as a judge, prosecution, defense, does criminal defense, a police officer, after a while they say, "We don't want to know anymore." That's the job in the criminal justice system. It's compounded with that being a police officer. There's a culture among police officers. And that culture is a norm of understanding all police officers within a department adhere to. Particular norms, values, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. They come in three forms. The blue wall of silence. Protecting police officers at all costs because supervisors and citizens are distrustful, evil, and untrustworthy. Us versus them. The good police versus the others. Citizens and offenders, they all group together. They're one and the same. Cover-up mentality, which discourages officers from trusting supervisors and citizens because the police officers believe that the public didn't understand them. They don't understand true police work. And they are forced to face criticism from others about their job, from the media, from their families and friends. These pressures and expectations force officers who have a pure desire to purely serve the community as an occupation to conform to this group mentally or face being ostracized and labeled as an outcast among that group. These methods of indoctrination are passed along to new police recruits in the academy by stressing the importance of obedience to authority through a structure of shame and honor. It teaches them to conform and obey to the prevailing standards of the police culture. Field training, the recruit gets a reality check of what it's like to be out in the city. They then begin to shy away from what they've learned in the academy, and automatically they become a prototype of really who trains them. It's horrible, and it's worse than when cities that lack resources to properly train its new and existing officers with methods to combat this culture and adopt new ways to handle the stress of the job.
When they were behind me with the lights on, I pulled right over,
So you weren't trying to escape?
No, I wasn't trying to escape.
In a video from the first police car, prosecutors did see Jeter stops on the side of the Garden State Parkway. The cops pull out guns. Why didn't you just get out of the car?
Because I was afraid. There was a cop on my left with a gun pointed at me, and there was one on my right side with a shotgun pointed. I'm afraid that I might get shot.
If you got out?
Mm-hmm.
The tape not initially turned over is on the dash of a second police car that comes from the opposite direction, crosses the median into ongoing traffic, and then strikes Jeter's car. There is no mention of that in any police report. When Jeter first told his attorney that part of the story,
it was incredible. I didn't believe his story at that particular point in time.
So you finally believed him then?
Yes.
The next thing I know, as he's coming around the car, the glass gets busted, and all the glass goes in my face.
Get out the car!
Your hands are up.
My hands are up. As soon as he opened the door, one of the officers reached in and just punched me in my face. As he's trying to take the seatbelt off, he's elbowing me in my jaw. And I'm like, ah! And he's like, stop trying to take my gun.
Don't go for my gun!
Stop resisting arrest. Stop trying to take my gun. And as he's saying that, I just knew, and I was thinking in the back of my mind, like, okay, this is gonna go wrong.
Get down! Stop resisting! Stop resisting! Why are you trying to take my gun? Get off my gun!
And right before when they opened the door about to put me in, the officer hits me in the back of the head again.
As soon as prosecutors saw this video, they dismissed all of the charges against Jeter. Interesting to note, an investigation by Bloomfield PD's scandal-plagued Internal Affairs Division had found no wrongdoing by police officers.
The blame is with the Bloomfield Police Department not providing that tape. If we hadn't had the tapes in this particular case, an innocent man would be in jail today.
I'm sure that if this happened to me, it could happen to a bunch of other people,
Scary, right?
It's a scary situation.
When the police make a mistake and shoot someone who isn't really a threat, they're always forgiven because it's the volatility of the situation. People on the receiving end of these raids aren't given that consideration.
Whiskey 7, we're at 3268 Jackson. We got shots fired
got officer hit. I need medical. I need additional units.
I don't believe that for 1 minute Matthew knew that it was the police that was breaking into his home.
There's no doubt in my mind that he knew exactly what he was doing and who he was firing at.
These guys need to go home at night with their families just like the rest of us do. Sometimes that doesn't happen.
2 people dead over what? What were they protecting us from?
As I began to piece together the puzzle, it became an obsession into trying to find the truth.
Why? Why did this happen? Who's making these decisions?
The objective of our entire profession is to bring peace. Sometimes peace is purchased with violence.
Bad rap. He lives here. 2000-4444. All right? He's watching fireworks.
It's the 4th of July.
Independence Day, right? There's a constitution that I swear an oath to, so don't freaking mess with it with these citizens. You understand me? I know you're not subject to the Constitution when it comes to your job, but don't mess with it. They have a right to the property. They have a right not to be searched by anybody. You understand that? They have a right not to be accosted. He lives here. I swear an oath to the Constitution. Don't mess with it. You understand me?